The heat season is coming, friends. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Melissa Guardaro.
I just love that video, by the way. Whoever put it together, that is really super great work. Okay, I am going to try to share my screen. Let me know when you can see it. Okay, so I think we all know that it's hot, and 2020 was actually the hottest year on record since we started. But this is a temperature trend chart showing Phoenix, and this is available online for Phoenix, Mesa, and Tempe. And you can see here the timeline from 1900 to 2018 that indeed the maximum temperatures are getting worse. But here's where the big problem comes in. These are the overnight temperatures. These are the minimum temperatures. And you can see that that has been a drastic increase. And a lot of this has to do with how we have built our environment. And this is a reflection of the urban heat island profile. So we have many different kinds of landscapes. We have desert, we have urban landscapes, and you can see the orange dots on the top, that's the evening temperature. And certainly the desert gets hotter than the urban areas. And then the blue dots are the lower temperatures, that's the temperature at 5 a.m. And you can see how in an urban core that has really been developed with a lot of concrete, not a lot of shade, not a lot of trees, not a lot of parks, there isn't that much of a swing between the overnight and the early morning temperatures. And that becomes a problem because people just can't cool down. And even if you have a house, you need to have air conditioning when you get into a situation where there are 145 days of temperatures that are over 100 degrees. And you can see that in 2021, while we didn't have the record of having 145 days, we still had 104 days where it was over 100 degrees. Now, if you're a native to Arizona, you're like 100 degrees, that's not really that bad. But 110 degrees makes it rather unbearable. And we broke all sorts of records in 2020 where we had 53 days over 110. And what's important to note is that that's actually the climate that we were predicting for 2045. So we are living what the future is for a lot of other people. And last year we had 22 days over 110 degrees. And this resulted in heat warning days. And I think a lot of people, when they hear a heat warning day, they think that there's some temperature threshold. And that's not entirely true. It has to do with an increase that from the previous days where it's unusually hot. And you can see that last year in June, we had many days that were unusually hot. And it's a problem when it happens early because people are not acclimated to the heat. And this has an impact that heat does kill people. And you can see here that the red line is the daily maximum temperature and the blue line is the minimum temperature. And this is when we started to have those spikes in June. And we experienced a lot of heat deaths very early in the season in June. There were also emergency room visits during the heat warning days. And you can see that also those tend to spike earlier in the season. And that's why when we start talking about cooling centers, it's really important to get on board earlier rather than later in the season. And I apologize for not having updated data. We are waiting from the Maricopa County Department of Public Health to release it. Supposedly that release is going to happen next week. So we're dealing with 2020 data in some cases and 2021 in others. And you can see here that the majority of the deaths that occurred in 2020 were outdoors. And that's large part due to the fact that there was a moratorium on evictions and also a moratorium on utility disconnection. So statewide, we had 520 heat deaths, 893 heat-related hospital admissions, and 2,400 emergency visits. And you can see how this becomes an ever-expanding number of heat emergencies. And probably the number of people that were sick from the heat is probably 10 to 20-fold from those that actually visited the emergency room. And all of this comes at great cost. These are figures having to do with Arizona as a total state, and probably 75% of that is due to Maricopa County being the largest county. But if you count up the emergency room charges, hospitalization charges, and also deaths, you can see that we are at an astronomical number in terms of expenditures just for health-related costs. And there are different vulnerable populations. Certainly males are more vulnerable than women. The elderly, those living alone, people with pre-existing health conditions like heart conditions or cardiovascular disease, children, people in low socioeconomic status, and substance abusers. And I know this is a lot of stuff on this chart, but I think what's important here is that you can see how emergency room visits and hospitalizations are between 70 and 80% male. And the people who visit the emergency room tend to be younger adults, whereas the people who are hospitalized tend to be older adults. And this number of the demographic for people who actually succumb to heat illness is also in this older category. So we're thinking, and we don't know why, but younger people seem to be able to recover. They go to the emergency room, they get sick certainly, but they seem to be able to recover, where that mechanism is not in place for people who are older. And then when you think about specific communities that are impacted by heat, certainly those that are unhoused. And as we looked at those overnight temperatures, the lows, you can see how high some of those were over time. And if the temperature does not get below 85 or 90 degrees, that's very, very dangerous for human health because your body just doesn't have a chance to cool down. And related to that are people who are living on fixed or limited incomes because you just don't have extra money to spend on air conditioning. And you end up wasting a lot of money if you have inefficient cooling systems or inefficient homes. If you're living in an older home that is not insulated well, you certainly have unnecessary spending in utility bills. So there's so much information out there about how to stay safe in the heat. And I'm not going to go through these charts about the difference between heat stroke and heat exhaustion and what you can do to keep safe. But I do want to point out that a cooling center, a place that's an indoor air-conditioned location, is really a place where people can cool down and get that necessary relief that they don't have either because they can't afford it in their house or their air conditioning isn't working or they're in precarious housing situations. And generally speaking, there are informal cooling centers like libraries and community centers, and certainly malls and movie theaters require some money in order to attend them. But then there's formal cooling centers that are located in community centers or not-for-profits, or I'm really excited for the past year, faith-based campuses. And we have agreed upon agreements. I don't know if Reverend Katie is going to get to this later, but these cooling centers need to be open to all who have need, and there's no discrimination based on age, race, religion, gender identity, familial status, and that they follow CDC guidelines for operating a cooling center during COVID. And this was particularly important last year and the year before. And then ideally they're open from May through September. And this is very different compared to how cooling centers are operating in other areas of the country where they only open during those heat warning or heat emergency days. But here in Arizona, because the heat is so intense, there's really a need to stay open from May through September. And we would like cooling centers to consider being pet friendly because number one, pets are in danger too, and a lot of people will not seek a cooling center if they cannot bring their pet. So in 2019, this is before the pandemic, there were 106 cooling centers that were opened in Maricopa County. And in 2020, when we were in lockdown, that was the first year of COVID, there were only 19 cooling centers that were open during the pandemic. And this was really a problem because even the informal areas were not open too, so that people were really suffering that needed to find heat relief. And in fact, in some cases, some cities didn't have any place for people to go to get relief from the heat. And I'm really proud of the AFN because in 2022, I am sure that the AFN affiliation helped to increase the number of cooling centers back to 95 compared to the previous year. And of course, my dog is barking on cue. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Dogs are just added commentary in support of this. So we'll pause for a moment to see if anyone has questions. And if not, we will round back at the end too, through the whole. Thank you, Melissa. I've heard that all before, but it is always astounding to hear the numbers again and the impact of heat again, especially on our vulnerable communities, especially when we're seeing pandemic fallout. We know that here in Arizona, we are facing an affordable housing crisis. We have been facing a lot of issues with the pandemic fallout. We have seen here in Maricopa County an increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness of 35% since 2020. The many people I've interacted with who are experiencing homelessness, it was related to the pandemic and losing their source of income, living really paycheck to paycheck before that because of wages not meeting their needs. So I see your question, Debbie, in terms of data outside of the Phoenix area. Melissa, do you want to address that really quick?
Yeah, I'm really glad to see someone from Yuma here on the call, but there are teams of people from the different health departments, certainly the state health department, that have been conducting cooling center research in Yuma and also in Pima County. So I can connect you with that information as well.
Yes, and so just for a little bit of history on the Heat Relief Network, was started by Maricopa County, but over the last 2 years, there have been conversations with Pima County in terms of expansion. I believe down in Tucson, a lot of the cooling centers had historically, from my conversations, been organized by the city and or nonprofits. And the AFN's work, at least I can speak of, is wanting to do a copy and paste down to Tucson as we are expanding it. But Pima County is attending meetings now to learn from what's been happening here. Tucson's a little bit cooler generally than Phoenix, but it still gets hot. And I was down there preaching all of last summer every Sunday, so I got to see the need. And so we definitely have that up for a conversation in just a bit. I'm going to move into the presentation of how your faith community can get involved in heat relief efforts. Let me get my screen up really quick. I want to do a shout out to some of our previous heat relief host sites that are here today. Pastor Susan at First Church UCC was a host last summer. Shuru Vasubandhu, who's on here, worked in that cooling center. And also a shout out to Wendy Johnson with the Justice Center, who has joined us, who was also a cooling center that was open to all ages throughout the summer. So these are a couple of photos of the work that was done last summer in terms of how we operated together. So, well, there you go. How you can help. So there's 3 main ways you can help. You yourself as an individual and your broader faith community. One is your faith community can serve as a cooling center, a cooling space, or a hydration station. I'm going to get into the details of all these bullet points in a minute. The second is you can volunteer, and the third is you can donate. You can donate supplies and you can donate money. There really is a way, no matter where your faith community is, no matter where you live, for you to help in heat-related efforts across the state, and particularly in Maricopa County this summer. So there are 3 levels of where faith communities can step up to the plate in terms of becoming a cooling center, cooling space, or hydration station. So the first is a cooling center. It's where you provide a large space during extreme heat hours. The availability is set by your site. So we had a variety of availability last year. Some sites had to close down for Sunday because multiple worships happened or multiple spaces were used for other contracts. Some opened early in May, some had to wait until June because, again, due to site scheduling and their own rules within there. But basically, you're providing a large space for people to come in and cool off. There's no number associated with that, but just think, especially last year, it was important to be able to distance for COVID purposes. But you're providing a large air-conditioned space. Visitors can stay during the full hours of operation, meaning that you're not saying, okay, come in for 30 minutes and then you need to leave. And then you're going to have volunteers or staff present, at least 2 at all times during the open hours to ensure health and safety. And of course, provide water. The second level is become a cooling space. This is very needed too. So we're asking faith communities or organizations to just provide a space. When you are there on site, open anyways. Many of our faith communities have office hours, and you might have a clergy, a pastor, a volunteer, a secretary, an admin sitting there. And if you can provide a space where people can just walk in the door, sit down for a limited time. I got to update this slide, apologies. So if you're open from say like 2 to 5 or noon to 3 on Wednesdays, if you just allow people to come in, you hand them a water while your staff is there, and to sit down until their body cools down, and then provide them with more information about where is the nearest full cooling center. We can help get them to that cooling center, that larger cooling center that's open for extended hours. So the difference between a cooling center and cooling space is the space is just kind of, you're open while you're there, and people know they could walk in and ask for a bottle of water and sit down to cool off if they need to for a few moments, as well as getting resources to be redirected to a larger space. The third is become a hydration center. So, oh, you can see I did not copy and paste right, sorry. We're basically, what this is you're gonna have a cool space where people can come in, grab water, and again, they could potentially stay there and cool down, or they can leave with that water with resources of how to get to that next location. And all 3 of these, the cooling center, the cooling space, and the hydration center, we're asking you to allow us to put a sign on your property. It might be as easy as having it on a door or a yard sign to let people know that this is a space they can either come to for hydration, or they can come to cool down for a limited period of time, or they can come during the extreme hours as set by the site. With that, we also ask that you allow us to list your location on the wider Maricopa County Heat Relief Network map, which we will, which is not up yet, but will be up soon, that has a list of all locations across Maricopa County. I want to say right now that this can sound really like a large ask, but part of what AFN does in our work is we're here to help you. So we're here to help you resource your community. This means from providing funding to offset utility costs that are associated with cooling centers. We're able to do some small sub-grants to providing water at your site to hand out, to supplying signage, other supplies, and also advertising. So you are not alone in this. The other way you can help is you can serve as a volunteer. All of our cooling centers that have already been brought on board need to have 2 people there at all times to ensure health and safety of all the visitors. Volunteers are there to monitor the cooling center along with the trained staff or key coordinators that will be there to make sure that if somebody is experiencing an extreme heat related emergency or illness, they are tended to. If there's another issue of health that they need attending to, we will have trained people on site that will know how to respond to that. Volunteers also help offer wraparound services. Due to our amazing work of Avreen and other staff members at AFN, we have been able to work with our sites. Some of our sites already have some of these services, including mobile shower units. social workers, Circle the City for healthcare comes and visits. Last year, vaccinations. We got a lot of vaccinations out to cooling center sites, and or let people know that vaccination clinics were happening right down the street and helped redirect folks for those. So volunteers help really resource as well as ensuring health and safety. It could be as fun as playing games. It could be watching movies together. It's really just being in the space, helping things move along. You can donate funds. We have an ongoing matching grant through AFN. When you donate $1, it becomes $2 to go to heat relief efforts. And so that is another way to contribute. And you can always donate supplies. Water is so needed in our summer. It goes so fast, so fast. So that will always be the #1 supply request, but chapstick, sunscreen, cooling towels, lotion, anything you think. If you are experiencing extreme heat, besides water, what else would you potentially need? These are things, hygiene kits to hand them out, prepackaged snacks. If your faith community wants to come and serve a meal during the heat hours at a particular site, we can help arrange that as well too. There's some really cool stuff going on as well. 211 last year had this, and it was really amazing to see it in action. They provided a transportation hotline. So by funding with APS, they've partnered to offer rides to cooling centers and emergency heat relief stations during Arizona's hot summer months. So we hand out, I just got a huge stack of cards today for all our cooling centers and faith communities that are now taking up space in my office, but to hand out to you all as you indicate you're going to be providing resources to the community. But anyone can call this 855 number and be connected to the nearest cooling center. And this is statewide, by the way, and or other resources. We just had 211 come in and do a full presentation of their services in our Social Justice Commission meeting. So if you want to see that particular presentation, I'm happy to give you the link to. They covered everything that they do there. We've created a toolkit that will be updated as more and more resources become available. We're trying to get ahead of the game with the heat, even though we've felt the heat a little bit already this year. As it gets hotter and hotter, more and more people feel called to respond to what's going on throughout the summer. But on our main page for this is arizonafaith-network.org/extreme-heat-toolkit, and you can actually find it just on our main extreme heat website. If you go to our website, go to our work, heat relief, cooling centers, you will find so many things right here to participate. This is where it will take you to the donating funds page, and you can donate directly there. You can donate supplies. We're going to be switching this into the wider cooling center response network, but right now there's a little bit of bugs there. So right now we have a form for you to say, I'm going to donate water, prepackaged, hygienes, other, and you just kind of let us know below what you're looking to donate. Volunteer. We have, and this again will be live updated as more sites come on board, the opportunities to volunteer throughout the summer. You can go and sign up here, and then this will send you a reminder. So if you know that you're signing up in August and you're like, oh, there's no way I'm going to remember, we will be reminding you that you are signed up for a shift to volunteer. And go sit there. We actually were able to send some of our staff to cooling centers, and we got a lot of work done while doing our cooling center job too. So there is many opportunities there. The application is where you would fill this out to let us know if you want to be a cooling center, a cooling space, and a hydration station. Yeah, if you want to sign up by groups, you totally can just put that kind of as the name. And you can put that there. Further down on this page, you'll see our toolkit I was just mentioning, and this will have the live links to the wider Maricopa area. And as soon as we find the Pima County area, we'll link that up too. But this is not live yet, but this is an example of what it will look like once the Maricopa County map goes live. You will see those little dots everywhere, and it will explain, like, this is a cooling center ran by Salvation Army. This is a cooling center ran by First Church, United Church of Christ. This is a hydration station ran, by whoever it is, and you'll get the address and locations. We will also be making flyers throughout the summer. So if you are located, for instance, let's say Central and Thomas, we'll make a flyer within there if you're participating in any way with this, of the closest cooling center locations, so you can hand that out if somebody walks into your faith community and say, these are the closest areas. There always will be the link to this live map, but not everyone has the ability to access internet and search through the map. So we try to make it as soon or as simple as possible. Again, we have so many down here is our mapped out resources so far of our cooling centers that we are in conversation with this summer that we have on board. Glendale will have a downtown justice center, which is getting ready to open, and they will be open during the extreme heat hours all summer. Cotizo United Church of Christ is doing heat relief again, and we'll have these specific hours listed as well. We have Justice Center in downtown by the HSC campus. Oh, I'm trying to click on too many things. First Church United Church of Christ has so lovingly agreed to be a cooling center once again this summer. We have a Grace Lutheran. That's the purple dot behind First Church. They're close neighbors. I call them the grandparents of heat relief because they've been doing this for so long, way before many of our faith communities have been involved. They run their own shit, but we list them on there just to let folks know that they are there, and we're always here to assist. Wesley United Methodist Church in South Phoenix will be a cooling center again. And then we are working with First Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Mesa. I should know that, it's my own denomination, but it is a mouthful. So you can find those, and it will continue to have updates. We're hoping to add, along with our larger cooling center sites, a whole web of hydration stations, and cooling spaces. So if somebody walks in 2 miles from Wesley United Methodist Church, and this particular community can't offer space beyond 20, 30 minutes, then that person could call 211 and get transported over to Wesley UMC or a Salvation Army site or a St. Vincent de Paul site as well. We work with the whole network throughout the summer. We have some upcoming trainings, and I am going to just kick this over to Irene for a moment to list anything else that I missed, as well as explain just a little bit about these trainings we're going to be offering with dates to be announced.
Okay, the mental health first aid training, I have to set that in place. And then the Narcan training, Mr. Miller, he does a Narcan training, and he does it on Zoom, and he will give me several dates. I'm still waiting for him to send those. I communicated with him on Thursday, and he was very busy, so he's going to give me those dates, but I know he's going to come through, and that's going to be during the last week of May, and he can go early. I already have Aspen Nursing Department. They're already working out their individual training for that. And he is very flexible. So if you are not able to make the dates that he have, or if you want to do it earlier, I can contact him and he can set that up as well. And then the heat related illness, you do anything that you will, if you're at the cooling center and you are experiencing, it would be just like if you were at a restaurant, like the last year we had that situation happen, and I just asked the person, they called me, I said, what would you do if you were at a restaurant and experiencing the same symptoms that the person is presenting? They said, I'll call 911. And I said, that's exactly what you do now. So we'll be putting the training up and then emailing everyone with the specific dates. And if that date doesn't work for you, hopefully we can get another date or have it on video for you to watch it and get the training that you need. And of course, I'm always available through my text is better if you're at the center, or call me and I can always help you through things.
Absolutely. Irene is amazing and on top of this constantly. We are going to be hiring some staff to be at the cooling centers during the summer. And we are looking to hire staff that are potentially impacted either by a loss of employment or affordable housing during the summer, so that we're lifting up the community that we are serving themselves. So I want to open it up to any questions, or if any of our folks who worked at a cooling center last summer or visited or hosted want to share any insights. We have a bunch of wisdom here, so please feel free. And I'm really good at calling names, so I can do that right now. So Vasu, if you are still able and to be in a place that you can speak, do you want to share anything about working at the cooling center last summer?
Yes, of course, Reverend Katie. I would like to share that it really was an honor for me to work with Pastor Susan in the cooling center. That was so beautiful to connect with the community in the cooling center. So my hope is that more faith communities we can get involved in this cooling center program, and we can support together the community. I feel that it's very important for us to be in this collaboration interfaith to support the community. So thank you, Reverend Katie.
Thanks, Vasu. Sandy.
I'm wondering if in the areas that probably have the most need, I live right downtown, and there are many, many places, I think, where the need exceeds the supply here. My faith community is way far away from downtown. So are there some places where there's empty rooms? The space itself is not a problem in faith communities, in churches, but say one congregation from elsewhere or 20 congregations from elsewhere could be identified with that space in order to provide a lot of the other resources so that that space can be used.
I see Pastor Susan waving, so I'm just going to let her address that.
I'm saying yes, yes, please. That's an issue for us. I've got a space, but I don't have volunteers. I don't have people to run it, and it's not going to be the same as what we had arranged for last year. So it's the space is there, but then a lot of the details are not worked out yet regarding that. So yes, we'd love to partner with you and let you use our hall.
And Sandy was a volunteer. She came in there with Vasu as well. It was really, it's nice if you can volunteer. I came in and for a couple of days of the week, and just serving the people. Pastor Susan gave me chills when I said, oh, how many days are you going to be open? She said, 7 days. The people need us. And I got chills, but it's really nice. You get a great feeling when you're there serving them. And I just said, hey, I go to the people there as they're laying down, do you need water? And just giving them service, it really brightens their day and they really appreciate it. And Vasu was there just smiling, and they protected Vasu. They really looked out for them, and they helped. They're like, oh, do you need me to help clean up? And I was there by myself sometimes, but they are saying, okay, we'll help you clean up. And they really appreciate you, and they can feel your commitment and caring for them. So it's really appreciated. The volunteers coming out, whether you can do 1, 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever time that you have. If you're compassionate, caring, they feel it and they really appreciate it, because they know the alternative is like, but they know you're there for them. So we really appreciate the volunteers, appreciate the churches that are involved, appreciate the people that are involved. It's everything, the people who donate, people have different areas that they can commit to. We appreciate it all.
It really is a very moving experience, and again, the community really does protect the ability to be there and the space that you're working with. So we often find kind of our allies as we go, and those are the folks we want to potentially hire to help run the center too, to help lift them out of poverty. Yes, Debbie.
Our church, well, of course, I'm in Yuma County, and our community does the same 3 levels, and our church has participated in each of those 3 levels. And I don't know yet what we're going to be able to do for this summer, but I was wondering, your training sounds wonderful. And I was wondering, would we be able to access that training for our volunteers through you online, because the network in Yuma doesn't have any kind of training.
Yeah.
We are right across the street from the fire department, but still, it would be nice to have some of the training you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Those trainings will be open, honestly, to anyone. They're predominantly meant for folks like, no matter where you are, that are doing heat relief, but they're good to have in general, even if you're not participating in heat relief. So please make sure to stay subscribed to our newsletter, and you'll see those dates coming out just as soon as they're confirmed. And again, even in Yuma, we want to work with you and Pima County, Tucson, everywhere to provide whatever resources we can. We are not yet in a place of having created quite the same partnerships as we have in Maricopa County to do the full rollout, but we do want to help however we can. So please connect with Irene or myself offline so we can see how we can resource.
Okay, thank you so much.
Anyone else? And I thought the conversation between Sandy and Pastor Susan was just perfect. That's the whole point of AFN stepping up to the plate as the network of faith communities, is to help be a matchmaker for those who have resources but maybe don't have the need, or those that have an overwhelming need and don't have the resources, to pair those up for the summer months.
I also have a potential shower truck too, if it's needed at a particular site. It's been offered to us previously and we haven't been able to take advantage of it. It's a sister colleague church that I can make contact with if that's welcome somewhere.
Wonderful. So exciting. I'd love to hear more about how anyone on this call might be thinking of getting involved in heat relief this summer. We've heard from some folks, but Wendy, you might be on the move. I know she's always bustling around Justice Center doing lots of stuff, but you want to share anything about heat relief or any particular thing that Justice is doing?
I think one of the best things of doing heat relief is that it improved our relationship, excuse me, with our neighbors, whether housed or unhoused. For those unhoused, they began to see us as a resource and a trusted friend, not another enemy. They don't take advantage of that. We have a cooler by our front door that has water in it all day, every day, 365. And they still come back to pick up a couple bottles of water, pop in to get a mask because they're going to a meeting or something, because they know we care. And we have been blessed by the faith community with our ability to serve a hot meal in the evenings. That's a huge hit because it means they don't have to go stand in line or compete with other folks to get food. And it's been a blessing for the groups that make it and bring it. We're going to do a little bit more this year. We're going to enrich it a lot more because we want people to feel comfortable to sit there all day, every day if they need to, you know, during our hours. We did find that 2 to 6 p.m. is really, or like 1 to 5 are really good hours. But we have some concerns for when the low temperature is over 85, because ground temperature can be 130, and that results in burns and dehydration. It's like sleeping on a heating pad on high for the whole night. And it really affects our older group. But I love it. I'm glad to be a part of it again this year. And I so appreciate AFN bringing us all together.
Thank you so much. I'm seeing the great comments in the chat. If you all don't know about Justice Center, shameless plug, please check them out. They serve our elderly community throughout Phoenix and expanding to Glendale and other areas too, but they are a very beloved site. I'm seeing sermon for sale. Yeah, if you preach or teach or share in any of your houses of worship a prayer around heat, shoot it our way. I think that's a great idea. Let's get some bins of resources out there that we can share with other people. I know this is it 2 days from now, Friday's Earth Day, so lots going on in faith communities. Rabbi, any idea about how you're potentially going to plug in?
Hi, yeah, so, I mean, what's specific for us is we have a huge security concern, not just with the shooting, but also with, I have a lot of members who are elderly who can't be around unvaccinated people. I have, there's been a lot uptick of anti-Semitic events. So for me, the biggest would be like a security concern of having unknown people come into, which sucks. I hate this world. Like, I hate this part of the world. I really do. And it's also a reality that I have to live with. So I'm trying to sort of balance my security, my COVID with my, because I do have a lot of vulnerable members of my population that need to feel safe in the building where, you have to have a vaccine to step in our building, and how to help. So that's where I'm sort of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I completely understand. That's why predominantly churches have been the place for extreme heat relief, because unfortunately of the safety threat in our mosques and synagogues in Arizona. But however that might look for you, we definitely are here, can even come out to faith communities or engage on Zoom to help educate and have conversations.
Probably
however it works.
Group volunteer would probably be the best, because we want to help. I want to help.
Absolutely. We love that. I love it. It's great to meet you too. I've heard a lot about your synagogue over the years. So good.
Thanks.
Good thing. Yeah, no, good thing. Yeah, Melissa.
We did have COVID protocols in these cooling centers for the past 2 years too. And the CDC issued guidelines, but the guidelines were like wear a mask and disinfect the tables. But we have a document. In fact, you should probably put that in your toolkit, Katie, on your website, of how to operate a cooling center with regard to COVID protocols. And I think that any organization that wants to institute those protocols in their cooling center to keep their volunteers safe, you are well within your rights to do so as well. So those guidelines just make it easier to make people feel safe, because one of the reasons why cooling centers weren't open, aside from things being shut down, but when they started to open up, many seniors just didn't feel safe being out in the community. And that was before vaccinations, but even now you don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. So if you can operate cooling centers following those guidelines, that would be really helpful.
And I wanted to add that at First Church, we had the protocol on the door. So as the community was coming in, and they were compliant. So with the separation, except for the couples that were together, they were allowed to be, but they were spaced and they followed the guidelines. Or else I just said, well, you can't come in, but they will follow the guidelines.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have just a few minutes left. This has been a really great conversation, and just lifting up again that no matter what your resources, availability, location there is a way for you to contribute in some form or fashion, even if it's just passing out information. So we're going to be putting together information kits. I definitely recommend, I know at my faith community, we'll be doing a project in May to build little kits where you keep cold water in your car. We make business cards with nearby locations of the cooling center, and I have a ton of 2-in-1 business cards just to hand to folks when you see them out there, particularly in the sun. We try to ensure all of our cooling center locations are stocked with dog food and water bowls too. So there's other ways to ensure that one of the highest barriers we hear from people getting access or even indoor space is pets, not being able to take their pet with them. So there's some stuff on our resource page in terms of, thank you, Ellie, gave this on staff to us in terms of fostering your pet for a while if necessary when you're experiencing homelessness. Also, we do try to keep dog food and water bowls and everything stocked as well at the cooling centers that are able to take pets. Any other questions with that? If not,
is it appropriate, Katie, is it appropriate that the person with the picture of the dog gave the information about the dogs? Just teasing.
Is that you?
The dog lovers, yeah. And we do ensure safety and all of that jazz with that. Yes, Wendy.
I'll unmute myself. Excuse me, I was eating my lunch while I was listening. I forgot my camera was on, but I wanted to tell you a couple of things that we have done both in heat and in extreme cold. In heat relief, we order bulk hard hat liners. They're little cellulose sponges that come on a rubber band, and they're appropriate to moisten, and you can wear them on your head, your neck, around your wrists. We found that helps lower body temperature, and we keep a little tub by the front door with really nasty, cheap white washcloths that are in kind of just above room temperature water. So when they come in, they can wipe their face, they can, get the sweat off their body and feel like, okay, I'm a human being again. And we wash those with bleach at the end of the day and start over the next day. And so we also do the same thing with washcloths, but we make them warm in winter because a lot of our folks are arthritic and that helps them thaw out. But those kind of little things, we got a donation from the city of Tempe, I think it was, of fans, little hand fans on the stick, so if you see somebody with a community, an advertising source or something like that, ask them if they have extras. They probably do. And that kind of stuff is super helpful.
Oh, that's such good points. Thank you, Wendy. That's really helpful and an affordable way to do some of those things that need to be done. So, well, with that, we are a couple minutes early. I do want to just emphasize, as Melissa and I have toured many sites and presenting the need for cooling centers and how faith-based institutions can be one way to be a solution to extreme weather of any kind across the country. We lifted up the point of just our houses of worship do such amazing work throughout all of the country and beyond. And you are known to your neighbors as a trusted, safe place to be. And that's why it's important to know that when we open these sites, we see some of the people experiencing the most vulnerable situations that they can go through in their lives, but they come there because they know it's safe. And so providing this alternative to some of the city hosted or other sites that may not be as welcoming to someone experiencing homelessness or really needing some additional help. That's part of why we open these sites. As we resource, we get wraparound services there. You're not alone in this. There's multiple ways to partner and connect. We're always learning. This is only the second full summer we'll do this, but we did respond when we got the call to step up and say there needs to be another alternative for places for people to go, during these extreme heat months, especially with the climate shifting. So I'm grateful for each and every one of you, the work you do, the way you build relationships with your neighbors, the neighbors in need and the neighbors who want to serve, and know that we are here to connect with you. Irene is our touch point for all of this. She's our amazing coordinator. She's also a nurse, so she's got lots of experience of helping those that are in need. And you can get in contact with any of us through our main website, and we'll send a follow-up email with this recording of the presentation and all the links. And with that, we will stop our streaming and stop recording and bid you a wonderful day.
Bye-bye, everybody.